"Send the ninja, now!" he cried. "Hadn't you better tell them where we are?" Tomokato broke off as a figure in black, contrasting most effectively with the brightly daylit buildings nearby, swung into view on a line attached to nothing conceivable. It was the Hollywood ninja, beyond a doubt. Lighting before them, the ninja drew his sword, and drew it, and drew it, and drew it. But the gang members compensated by sitting very, very still on their mounts long enough for the ninja to swing it laboriously round, beheading every single one of them. Their severed necks erupted in perfect unison, like fountains in one of your more sanguinary Esther Williams movies. Bleeding gratuitously at the mouth, the dire wolves all just laid down and died. The ninja slid his blade back into its scabbard without even wiping it off. "Boy, that was stupid," Shiro said in disbelief. Oh, hello. Thank you for once again stopping by my as of yet not completely finished apartment here in Springfield, Illinois. I have kind of eclectic tastes that are spread all over the place, and so the result is that I often stumble across books that nobody else has ever heard of. In any case, there are a lot of books out there that are not famous and might not even be in print anymore. And so for those, I'd like to dedicate this series. And I'm going to start with one that I was introduced to by a friend who gave me, strangely enough, the last volume of it. And that series is called Samurai Cat by Mark E. Rogers. And I don't have that last volume anymore because I gave it back to my friend, but I did over the years pick up another, The Sword of Samurai Cat, which is is it the third? Okay, here, near the end, right there. It says, The Adventures of Samurai Cat, More Adventures of Samurai Cat in the Real World, The Sword of Samurai Cat, that's this one, and Samurai Cat Goes to the Movies. And the sixth and final installment in the series is Samurai Cat Goes to Hell. This is a very difficult series to understand. The series is, in general, absurdist. It follows the adventures of an anthropomorphic cat, who is also a samurai, and his nephew, who's kind of like his squire, his nephew Shiro. They are essentially running around history and time and space, assassinating people who betrayed and murdered Tomokato's Lord Nobunaga back in the 16th century. Traveling to Northern Virginia, they visited various contacts in the U.S. intelligence community, trying to learn the whereabouts of Count Johnson, vampire lord and all-around obnoxious person. While in the form of a giant bat, Johnson had turned the tide of battle at Azuchi Castle, grossing out thousands of Nobunaga's retainers with a mind-boggling guano attack. The vengeance story behind it just stretches throughout all of these 5 or 6 or however many books it is. I have to stress this, I have only read the 2 books in the series because I didn't look right before I made this video, but I have looked over the years, and I can't imagine why they would be back in print now. I don't know very much about Mark E. Rogers, the author. If I were to meet him, I would tell him that he writes some very corny and very silly humor, but that for whatever reason, it just all kind of works. There's something to be said for taking a character from one starting point and then just running with it, just taking the gag and taking it all the way to the end. Now, I haven't read the other books in the series, but I do know The Sword of Samurai Cat, which is falling toward kind of the end of the run of books, and they were spaced out over several years. In fact, I think the first one may have come out in like the late 80s. I'll throw a note up there and say when I look at this again and see. Each of the stories in The Sword of Samurai Cat is essentially a hit on another character who assassinated Lord Nobunaga. They found out where the lawyer's field was and dropped O'Sullivan off in a convenient open grave, then went to their hotel and packed for their trip to 13th century Mongolia. Tomokato's next target was Genghis Khan. The cat was rather looking forward to leaving the 20th century. He had no idea that the trip was going to be indefinitely postponed. The beginning of that story begins in a congressional hearing where where Senator Eastwood is interrogating Shiro for his arms dealing and genetic experiments. The stories can start anywhere, they can go anywhere, and wherever they go to in between is an absolute surprise. Just in this volume alone, they're making fun of Dawn of the Dead and Red Dawn, both in the same story, and the story is called, yes, Red Dawn of the Dead. Tomokato and Shiro are at a mall where they assassinate a parody of Mr. Rogers. A meteorite crashes which irradiates everybody and turns them specifically into Soviet zombies in the shopping mall, and Tomokato and Shiro have to gun and sword their way out of the fray. The jokes really can come from anywhere. It's almost like the same attitude that Mystery Science Theater 3000 takes, where you need to understand every single riff that the guys are making and that the robots are making in the theater, you need a broad knowledge of pop culture. And the Samurai Cat books are very much the same. The entire premise of the story is to rag on the Temple of Doom. They are with the character Wisconsin Platt, who's clearly an analog for Indiana Jones. And in it, at one point, they are trapped. They've chopped off a bridge, a rope bridge, and all the enemies have fallen to their death. And Shiro says, "But how do we get across?" "Perhaps we could wait till a submarine goes by, then cling to the periscope," Platt suggested. "What if it submerges?" Tomokato asked. Platt snapped his fingers. Damn. Chapter 2. In the end, though, they did have to settle for a submarine. It really is, it's like a cartoon in that things are so elastic, they can go in any direction. Like I keep saying, I have never laid hands on the other books in the series. I would love to have them. I don't care how much they cost. It is something that I would absolutely adore and admire. But I did have the privilege of a friend loaning me for a short time Samurai Cat Goes to Hell. Tomokato and Shiro are killed, of course, and they plummet into hell. And they travel down through the 9 circles, just like Virgil and Dante himself did in the original work. Along the way, Tomokato fights essentially every single villain he's ever fought in the book series before. And that's the thing, because I knew and I could sense in-jokes going on. But I didn't care, because everything was so funny. For whatever reason, for me, it's just this magic brew of stuff that works perfectly. And if you're the type of person, or you know the type of person who has a really wide encyclopedic pop culture knowledge and loves to riff off of just any kind of thing that you bring up, I think that they would love the Samurai Cat series by Mark E. Rogers. So, do you know where you can find copies of the Samurai Cat series? If so, hit me up, let me know. You can email me here, you can leave a comment on the video that I will moderate, and you can make a video response to this review. Also, if you have any other obscure books that you've read that no one else ever seems to know anything about, and you'd like me to read them, try to get a copy into my hands, and I'll review it here on the channel just for you. I think that's all I've got for you right now. Thank you so much for stopping by. Good night.